Yeah, just kidding. Uh, just kidding. Hey, everybody on YouTube. This is right before the mics go hot, as they say, Chris. So, Chris, you feel ready for this pod today?
I'm ready.
Okay,
Thanks
all
for
right.
watching the show and seeing our faces. And we're about to deliver the goods.
Yes. Hey, everybody, welcome back to Chris. You better leave that in there because I want to see what that sounds like. Welcome back to episode number 53 of the Paid Search Podcast. My name's Jason Rothman, as always, joined by my co-host, Chris. Chris, how's it going? We got a great episode today about YouTube.
That was probably one of my favorite introductions there you did. Straight to the point, lots of energy. Finally, after 53 episodes, I think you finally hit it. That's what I'm looking for.
So many people have been asking us lately to how can we listen to the before the last 30 episodes that they have on iTunes and Stitcher and Google Play? How do we go back to the beginning? Just so everyone knows, that's now on the homepage of our website, a player. You can find all the old episodes there. Paidsearchpodcast.com. Chris, I went back recently and listened to some of our first episodes. Wow, who is this humble guy? What have I become? What kind of monster have I become? I sure sounded a lot more humble. But anyway, Chris, with that said, we're going to talk a lot about YouTube today. But before we do that, I just wanted to thank our listeners on our behalf for sharing the show. We know you guys are doing that. We see that. And the show's growing, so we appreciate that. And then also, I want to thank two special people, Chris, Josh Wine and Melanie at 123 for leaving us great reviews on iTunes. So we appreciate that. So just going to read these off real quick, Chris, and you can let me know what you think. So Josh says 5 stars, a good balance between basic info. That's what Chris gives us. And the more advanced techniques from Jason. A good listen for folks who feel like they have a good grasp of what AdWords is, but need some help taking it to the next level. So we appreciate that review, Josh.
Excellent review.
Yeah, good review. And then Melanie at 123, 5 stars. Guys, keep up the great work. As a digital marketing manager, this podcast has become such a great tool for me. Love insights on all things paid search and your after podcast YouTube channel. Again, great work. Keep going. We will. Hoping to work with one of you guys one day.
Who will she choose? I'm sure as the senior representative here, I have a pretty strong opinion about who you should choose, but we'll move on.
Melanie, Josh, thank you very much for those reviews. Chris, let's get into it, man. Let's talk about YouTube.
Yes.
Before we run through our first topics here, we're going to talk about a little overview of what YouTube advertising is. Then we're going to jump into the different ad formats. And then the main part of the show, guys, we're going to dive deep on the different audiences and targeting methods in YouTube, because that's where it gets really interesting. But Chris, why don't you take a few minutes and tell us about what prompted you wanting to do this episode? You get questions from clients, and why are we talking about YouTube today? What does YouTube have to do with AdWords?
Yeah, I think originally, I get asked about by clients, should I be on YouTube? Should I be doing YouTube? And that's definitely a good question, because it's an incredibly powerful, big network. And another thing is we got a request from a listener, which we'll address a little bit later, but requesting us to talk about YouTube. So I see it in my everyday work, and we also get listeners that want to know more about it. So I think this is a topic we've ignored for a while. We've kind of hit around it before, but this will be the first time we really dive deep. And I think we got some good stuff to talk about exactly why it matters. That's what I think. This is what we're going to try and answer, is why you should be advertising on YouTube. And that's
and just to take it way back, Chris, for anyone that doesn't know, because I think some of our listeners may not, Google owns YouTube. And so when people run their video ads on YouTube, that is all done through the Google AdWords platform. Google is the company that makes money off of this, and that's how you run ads on YouTube, is through Google. So this is a Google AdWords program. It's just like you have your search network, you have your display network, and now the video network on YouTube. So Chris, the main difference, or one of the main differences with YouTube ads, is the kind of bidding you do. So instead of bidding cost per click, you now bid cost per view. And I have experience bidding on YouTube. You have experience. So let's talk about what the average cost per view bid that you see on your accounts. My accounts, I get my clients basically a half a penny per view is what I'm able to do. What are you able to do, Chris?
Oh my goodness,
I'm
that's
just kidding. I'm just
that
messing with you.
seems ridiculously low.
I just wanted to throw out a super low number, and then you have say like 1,000 times that.
Yeah.
So no, I've been
Okay,
playing
let's
that one
talk
for a
real.
while.
Thank
So
you, thank you for explaining what unrealistic expectations are. And now let's get to the facts. I'll tell you, my I have two areas that I bid on for one particular client. I'm going to use it as an example. And this client, in the entire time that they've been bidding and doing this, they've spent about $19,000 in
Wow.
ad spend on YouTube, and have accumulated about 100,000 views. Okay, so
Wow.
this is a lot of data. This is not some little campaign. I mean, this has been going for a while. And overall, I have a remarketing campaign, and then I have a more generic targeting campaign based on, topics and stuff like that. So I'll give you my two stats. So I have on the remarketing campaign, I have a bid of 87 cents on my remarketing, and then on my
Wow. Okay.
my
I've never done remarketing on YouTube, so that's new to me.
So for my bids on display or the non-remarketing area, let's say the new viewers, have a bid of 50 cents. So 87 cents ends up bringing me about a cost per view of 23 cents per view.
Okay. So it's much lower than your bid.
Yes, definitely.
Okay.
And then bids of 50 cents for display brings me to a cost per view of 15 cents on the non-remarketing areas.
Okay,
So
that's more in line with what I'm used to. When I set up YouTube campaigns, they kind of give you metrics on what your cost per view, a good place to start at. And I believe most of mine, we start out between a bid of like either 10 cents to 25 cents, sometimes in the 30s. My cost per view has been sometimes as low as 7 cents, sometimes as high as like 15 cents. But Chris, these are much smaller campaigns I've dealt with, and not as much data to know what's working. So what would you say the average cost per view for someone to expect who say got $1,000 to $5,000 YouTube budget?
I mean, the average that Google gives on that first campaign setup when you're setting things up, I'd say is pretty accurate. I mean, here's the difference. You're going to see something a lot higher. I wouldn't say lower. Lower is way too obscure to try and know when you're going to see something lower. But you're going to see something higher if you're going after, just like anything in AdWords, something that's highly contested for. If you're in the insurance industry and you're going after a heavy metro and you're trying to shoot for, that 30, 40, age bracket who's looking up videos about this or that, the latest, viral videos, you want to be there right next to Geico or something like that.
Yeah.
Stuff that people are really paying for. You're showing up next to, you want to show up next to Coca-Cola ads. We're talking, you're going to need to pay probably outside of this bracket. You're going to be a lot higher. But if you're looking for stuff that's, it's a smaller area, maybe you're looking for a little bit higher demographic, as far as age, I should say, older demographic.
Right.
Maybe there's not as many people bidding on that. You're going to run into a lower cost per view. So it's really what you're going after.
So it's kind of hard to pin down. Would you say most people who run a YouTube campaign, these small business owners, a lot of our listeners, would you say anywhere between 10 cents and 30 cents a view?
Sure.
Is normal.
Sure.
Okay. Yeah. And of course, the more niche you go, the more expensive market you go after, the higher that's going to go. It's just, Chris, I don't have a lot of experience running as many YouTube campaigns, not nearly as many as I do search campaigns. So I don't have a good idea of, like, I know what injury lawyer cost per clicks are. I know what movers, I know what dentists, I know all those different kind of service industry. And I can guess on so many of them because I have so much experience, but YouTube's kind of a new thing for me. So I don't know what the average view, but it sounds like 10 to 30 cents to start out, and then be ready to go higher if the kind of traffic you want is there to go higher. So last part of our first part of the podcast here, Chris, why do YouTube? Why advertise on YouTube if you're a small business, a doctor, a lawyer, a pool cleaner, a chiropractor, you have a small car dealership? Why do YouTube?
The same for me. I'll give a short answer, and I'm sure you can elaborate with some numbers here. But for me, it's the number 2 search engine in the world. And when it comes down to numbers, I mean, Jason, you probably have some numbers you can quote, but the fact is there's people there. If there's people there, if there's people on this network, then it's worth being on as an advertiser.
Yeah, just to throw some numbers out at you guys, there's a billion users on YouTube. 1/3 of the people on the internet use YouTube. Those numbers are coming from Google. There's more 18 to 49-year-olds, that money demographic, on YouTube than any cable demographic. And some would say, most importantly, Chris, half of the views on YouTube are coming from mobile now. That number is only going to grow. But the point is that YouTube is here to stay with the trend towards mobile. So as everything goes more mobile, YouTube is going to be here. And the way I like to think about it, Chris, is TV ads a lot of the times work. There's a reason people advertise on TV. It's not stupid to try to build a brand and run video ads. It makes sense. That's what every business owner wants. But TV is expensive, Chris. It's not user friendly in terms of being the advertiser. And I like to think of YouTube as TV ads for the everyman small business. You have $1,000 budget, that's not going to get you squat on TV. That won't even get you in the door. But with YouTube, you can rack up tons of views and get going on that video branding and that platform. So that's why I love YouTube. It allows people who love doing search a nice complement to their campaigns to try to grow a brand as well and get into that video advertising market.
Yeah, good stuff. So let's go into and talk about what you as an advertiser, our listeners as an advertiser, have as far as options. So first of all, we're going to talk about the types of ad formats that are available. Okay. These are the ways that you can advertise on YouTube. So this is the way that your ads show. So if we're talking about comparing it to search, we would say you have an option to have search ads that are in text, or you might have a shopping ad that shows up or something like that, or a remarketing ad that's in the search network that's showing as a text ad, right? This is the same idea for the ad formats on YouTube. Okay, so first we're going to talk about display. Okay, so this is just where your ad is shown on YouTube, and it's just on the page. Okay,
so this is just a general display network ad. It just happens to be the placement you're running on is YouTube.
Mm-hmm. Right. So it's much like display network. Yeah, exactly. Okay. So next I feel that towards the bottom here, it starts getting more and more direct in the type of advertising. So I'd say that's probably one of the weaker areas and definitely one of the cheaper areas to do. Yep. Next, we move into overlay ads. Okay. These are clickable little banners at the bottom. They have a little X on them. They're kind of annoying. If you're on your phone or something, it takes up a lot of room. Or if you're on your laptop or computer, has a little X on it. It takes up a little bit less room. But either way, you're going to notice it. It's going to pop up on there.
And again, those are not videos. Those are just images.
Again, yeah, exactly. They're clickable. They're call to action. They have some type of reason for the person to want to click on it. And that's an overlay ad. Okay. Next, we're going to move to probably what most people are familiar with when they think about ads on Google. Those two, they may not even really think about.
Yeah, especially on mobile, Chris. I use the mobile app for YouTube for all my YouTube viewing. I never see those two kind of display or little text things at the bottom.
Yeah, they're not nearly as noticeable. What's really noticeable are these next two: skippable ads and non-skippable ads.
Videos.
Okay? Yeah. These are the videos. These are the ones that, you see for 5 seconds. That's the skippable ad. You sit there and wait with your hand right over that little skip button because you really want to know what, how you're supposed to kill this insect, that's running around. You don't know what it is or how to kill it, right? Some random thing you're looking up on YouTube for, you quickly skip, okay? Most of the time, that's what users do. Okay, for advertisers, what you want is you want the person to be able to engage and relate and not skip the ad. Okay,
right.
We're going to go into this a little bit later, but keep in your mind here, skippable ads, it's in the advertisers and Google's interest that people do not skip ads. Okay, so what you want to do is try and achieve an ad that people end up watching because it's interesting and there's something valuable in it. Okay, we'll come back to that. Next, we have non-skippable ads. These are ads that probably annoy you. You end up putting the phone down, or, kind of glaze off and open up your email if you're on the computer, right?
And Chris, you wrote 15 to 20 seconds. Some of these I see lately have been 30 seconds.
Yeah, they can go up to 30 seconds. Yeah, you're right.
Now, do you ever watch a YouTube video where you want to check out the video, but then they throw a 30-second ad at you and you're like, oh, screw it? Because I do that quite a bit. I just give up on the video and go watch something else.
Well, I am part of the minority that has YouTube Red, so I don't see ads. I'm an advertiser that pays not to see ads. So I love it. I mean, this is not a plug for YouTube Red at all, but I don't pay for the premium content or anything. I just watch a lot of YouTube. So I just don't want to see the ads anymore. And it's worth it to me.
Right.
Okay. So non-skippable ads, 15, 20, 30 seconds, depends on that. And then finally we have bumper ads, right? That's the shorter version of a non-skippable ad. Okay. These are definitely the one. This is the same one that that you saw on the Burger King ad, the famous Burger King ad that tried to call out Google Home. You know, that said, "Okay, Google, what is the Whopper?" Right. This is the non-skippable 6 second, 10-second video, and specifically bumper ads are always 6 seconds long. Okay, so it's very short. Great ads. One of the big reasons why I end up not using this is because it has to be 6 seconds. How many clients of yours, Jason, do you have that has a 6 second ad that is engaging, that's valuable, gets the message across in 6 seconds that you could use for a bumper ad?
Well, I haven't talked to a few of my clients, Coca-Cola, American Airlines, Geico recently, because they're not that important to me. No, just kidding. Yeah, I'm just kidding. Those are not my clients. If you have those kind of clients, or if you are those level companies, even much smaller than that, or a big company with lots of resources to make 6 second ads. Just like you, Chris, my clients mostly are small business. They don't have an in-house video team. They don't have exactly 6 second ads.
Right. And then that's the biggest issue when it comes to advertising on Google is you have to have the resources. And if you don't have a 6 second ad, a 30 second ad, most advertisers end up going with a skippable ad, the 5 second skippable ad.
Which I got to say, Chris, not the worst thing, because if you look at the metrics, you can see how long people watch the ads. Believe it or not, if you target the right audience, some people will watch 50, 75%, sometimes 100% of a 1-2 minute ad video if it's relevant to their life and their business.
Yeah, I agree. It does happen, but preferably I like the impact of a 15-20 second ad.
Yeah, then for a fact someone's going to watch the whole thing for sure.
Yeah. Okay, and then last is a newer area, but it's the cards. It's the overlay on video. Basically, it's just like the overlay ads that are clickable banners at the bottom. The cards are in the same way. They're engagement that can show up directly over the ad for a short period of time. So that's it. That's the ad formats. I mean, not very scary. Most people are going to fall in the skippable, non-skippable, and bumper ads. That's
let me throw one more thing out there, Chris. So we talked about you got to have resources if you want 6 second ads. But if you're a small business, most small businesses these days seem to have a YouTube channel. And at some point, they engaged video agencies to make little video snippets for them. That's how you set up your ads in AdWords. You find your ad on YouTube, and you tell Google when you're creating your YouTube ad, this is the video I want to use, and you put a link to that video on YouTube. So if you've gotten far enough in your business life to be able to put videos on a YouTube channel, you potentially can run those videos as ads through AdWords, because that's how you do it. You put your videos on YouTube, and then you tell AdWords which YouTube link is that ad. At least that's how I've set it up, Chris.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, definitely. Okay, so Jason, I think this is a good introduction to just the basics. But let's talk about the stuff you and I can deliver that they may not get anywhere else.
Before that, Chris, let's talk about TV ads, because if we're in a TV pitch meeting and we're talking about the different kinds of targeting we can give people, the different people we can give in front of them, it's basically boys watch sports, women watch dramas, and what do you want to target?
Yeah,
old people watch Jeopardy. Young people watch MTV on the Viacom network and Comedy Central. That's awesome targeting. Wow, guys, really knocked it out of the park there. That's garbage. That is so 1990s. Okay, guys. Now we're talking about the different audiences, real targeting, Chris. We can really niche things down here and use the power of what our TV ads, video ads, but with a much more targeted audience than just boys watch sports.
Exactly. Yeah. And
Yeah.
and that's the cool part of what we're about to talk about. We're going to give some examples of the power of why you want to use YouTube for your advertising, because what we're going to talk about makes what Jason described sound like Stone Age advertising. It sounds ridiculous that
Yeah.
someone would just generalize an entire population of people and say, these people like these things, which is ridiculous.
Right. Like, how many tampon commercials have you seen in your
Oh my
life?
gosh. Yeah.
You
That's
know,
a good point.
or how many erectile dysfunction commercials have women? It's just like
Yep.
they have to advertise to the masses, and when you do that, there's going to be a lot of good stuff. I mean, Procter and Gamble sells a lot of soap and detergent and all that, but there's a lot of wasted spend, and YouTube kind of sneaks in there and allows you to really get a targeted audience. So, Chris, let's talk about the first kind of audience that you can target, and this is keywords. So I actually had a question for you, Chris. When we say keywords, I've read it because I pasted in here exactly what Google said. When I type keywords into the YouTube targeting in terms of what I want to target, say we want to get in front of people who are watching videos about fishing. You put keywords in there like fishing, bass fishing, fishing poles, and then you tell me, does that get you on videos that have to do with fishing and their title and all that and description? And does it also get you on search results when people type in fishing into YouTube?
Well, the answer to the first one is yes. It does get you on videos that have are categorized in that way, and it's the same way that it works with the display network. If anyone understands how the display network works, it's basically like this: you choose your keywords and your targeting, and then Google puts a category in that group of keywords. Right? You're labeled among many thousands of different categories, and then when someone publishes a video, Google looks at the content of the video, everything that they have to review the content of that video, then puts that video in a category. So there's bots on the advertiser side and bots on the content provider side. Then those two bots decide this is in that category, this is in this category. These two should go together. If the bid matches and all the magic happens, you'll end up showing an ad in that for that video because your category matches this category. It's not a matter of like this. You have the word fishing, and then you show up for the ad that is or the some obscure thing that says fishing. Okay. It's a categorization issue.
So, but basically, in terms of adding keywords to your campaign to target, when you select keywords to target on this kind of display video campaign, basically what you put in there as your keywords are the kinds of videos you're going to show up on?
Yes.
Okay, so if I put fishing, I'm going to show up on fishing videos. Okay, interesting. Now tell me about the search results.
So, okay, yeah. So it for the search stuff, you have to choose a type of ad to show up. So you might have to set up, a separate type of ad format to show up. So because we talked about the ad formats: display, overlay, skippable ads, not skippable ads. So you might not have the right ad format. You need to choose those search results. Now I'll tell you, I haven't done the search results in a while, and honestly am not familiar with a lot of the newer things they've done, and that might not be true anymore, but I know that was a possibility, and I believe it's a categorization as well. It just comes down to category. I don't think you can do specific exact targeting on things like that.
Chris, we talked about the keywords. You enter keywords just like the display network, and whatever keywords you enter, those are the kind of videos that your ads will show up on. Let's take a step back before we forget and let people know, don't forget, all the traditional search settings are still there on a YouTube campaign in terms of time of day your ads run, location your ads run in, demographics. So just because we're talking about these different video audiences, don't forget you can target different demographics, you can target different times of day, and then most importantly for most people, you can target different cities and states and zip codes and all that. So taking us back to the audiences that you can target on YouTube, Chris, the second kind, similar to the display network, is remarketing. And why don't you take us through how remarketing works on YouTube?
Yeah, no surprise. It's based on the audience that you've built in your remarketing audience, and you say if someone that is that has viewed my website or is basically in my remarketing audience, somehow has been acquired in my remarketing audience, they have a potential of seeing your ad. In the example that I gave for my client, I bid 87 cents, quite a bit higher than my 50 cent for my basic stuff.
Yeah.
The reason is it's a bit more valuable for me to show a remarketing ad than it is to a general audience because they're already familiar with it. And the kind of product that we have is a big investment type of product. It's a home improvement type of thing. So it's important to be in front of them multiple times for them to make a decision to go ahead and do that. So it can be incredibly powerful, and it's only going to happen. It should be clear, only going to happen when they're on YouTube. So this is a limited engagement. They're not going to see it in the same way that remarketing works on the display network, where they can see it on their phone and on their computer, all through the day. This is just a YouTube engagement type.
YouTube or the YouTube app which could be on their phone.
Correct.
But yeah, it's great to remarket to your audience. If people think, you're real, you're big time when they see your display ad, when they're reading their local news website or ESPN or whatever, they're going to think you're way big time when they see your video ads, following them around and staying on the top of their mind. So I love remarketing, Chris. It's actually working for me at the moment. Great. And I'll probably start remarketing with videos as well soon, just because it's such a powerful format. You can become so much more engaged with the audience than them just passively seeing a display ad on the internet somewhere. Yeah. So the next type of audience, Chris, is targeting by interest and topics. So before we get into interest, let's just knock out topics. So why don't you take us through what topics are targeting different videos to advertise based on topics?
Yeah, I think briefly, there's a big difference. We're categorizing these together, but they are two very different things. Yep. Interest is based on what the user is interested in, based on their viewing history, their demographic, their age, gender, that kind of stuff. There's generalizations made about that, but also some very specific stuff based on what they're subscribed to, what history they have in their viewing history. So that's interest. Topic is completely different. Topic is based on the subject matter of the video.
Right.
Jason, you can imagine, all the differences between, do I want to go after what people are interested in, or do I want to go against what the topic of the video is about? Basically the answer is yes and yes, because you want to test it. You can figure out, do people respond better if they have an interest in it? Is Google's information good enough that it really does know that people have an interest in this? Or do I just want to flat out go after someone that is searching home improvement, and there's videos about home improvement? Yeah.
Yeah, I think both things are good. So topic is just going to be the subject matter of the video, targeting different types of videos. Now, Chris, that is similar to keywords, correct?
Well,
and this is something, honestly, I've never been clear on the regular display network.
No, the interest in the topics is not something that you can choose individually. You have to choose based on pre-written categories.
So there's just fewer topics than keywords you can enter.
Yeah. Yeah. So
gotcha.
When you choose an interest or a topic, you are presented with a list. So you get a list of things like fast food junkies and things like that. People that are interested in these kind of things. Right. So there's only so many of each. And you're going to be disappointed. You're going to be disappointed when you look at them, because you'll say,
well,
none of these really fit.
Yeah, it depends on the market, Chris, because I work for a wedding planner in the UK, and believe it or not, there's an interest. There's an audience for people who are interested in wedding planning services. So for her, she's like, "Wow, they cover everything," because they cover what she does. But I agree, there's a lot of interest that they don't cover yet, but they're only going to keep growing that. So topic is the subject matter of the video. Interest is the user, what the user is into, Chris, and then interest is broken down into two types of audiences. In-market audiences, which people who are temporarily in the market, temporarily interested in a topic. The classic example is engagement rings. People who are temporarily interested in engagement rings because they get their engagement ring and then they bought one and they don't need to see any more ads because they have one. The other type of audience is affinity, Chris. And we've talked about the balloon popping before, that whole thing. If someone, once someone gets into that, they're never going to not be into balloon popping. So that's an affinity audience. Now, there's no category to target that, unfortunately. But just kidding.
Please, can we move? I don't want to talk about that again.
All right, so we won't talk about it, Chris. So the affinity audience, a classic one is like sports enthusiast, or you had just mentioned one. There's fast food enthusiasts. There's people who are into horror movies. These are people who are into a topic, or sorry, shouldn't use the word topic. They have an interest in something in a field, and they're always interested in that. So you can either do in the market, people who are temporarily interested in something, or affinity, people who are all the time interested in something. And I think those two things, Chris, are pretty powerful. I love the interest kind of targeting.
Yeah. It's going back to what you said. Good luck any type of archaic TV to be able to tell, I'm going to show this ad to this person or this household because it's more likely they have an affinity or an in-market status for this type of thing. This is light years beyond anything other than, because basically what you can choose on TV is what the subject matter, the time of day that the person's watching the ad. It's just very limited. Yeah. This gets into a very personal.
Now, Chris, this whole discussion got me thinking, TVs are only going to become more connected to the internet. Things are going to become only more demand viewing. And man, if someone can run the television network advertising game, but do it with this kind of targeting and charge TV level prices, that's going to be super valuable to whoever wins that war out there. So moving on to our next kind of audience that you can get your ads in front of. We go back to demographics, Chris. This is huge on display. It's moved over a little into search, which is awesome, which we've talked about before. But there's a little bit more you can do on display. So why don't you walk us through the different kinds of demographics you can target while they're watching any kind of video?
Yeah, I get excited about this because this is so cool.
You're a people person, Chris. No one.
I am, as I work alone in my home. Yeah, sure. I love people. So of course you can do locations. Okay. I have to mention that because people might, think that, well, what if I only want to advertise in DC? Okay. Yes. George out there listening to the podcast. Yes. You can advertise in.
You can do that with TV. Come on, people.
Obviously you can do those very simple things, just people on their mobile phones or stuff like that. We're going beyond that. We're talking, you can choose demographic targeting based on age, gender, parental status. All kinds of things. If you're selling some kind of baby
diapers.
Cart, all kinds of things that you would be able to choose parental status for who sees your ad. Household income. If you have
Gold
a very
diapers.
Expensive product, you can choose that you want a higher tier income.
Diapers.
Okay, that's so.
I wish they had that.
But here's the thing. Here's what makes a big difference for me, Jason. We've talked about demographic stuff in search. You get on your phone, you get on some obscure, computer that you're just searching real quick or something, you may not be logged in on Google at the time.
Even on your own computer. Yep.
Even on your own computer, you may not be logged in. Okay. So Google gets no demographic information, right?
Right.
So if you and I are looking at our age brackets, 20-30% might be logged as with appropriate ages for the people searching. Right. Yeah. So what I'm saying is if there's 100 clicks, only about 20 of those would have some type of age associated with those clicks and impressions.
On search, you're a hater. I do a lot of demographic. I tend to see my standard, Chris, is 50% unknown. 50% traffic, we're going to know the age. 50% is going to go in the unknown category. Same thing with gender. That's just my baseline. It varies, but I like to use a 50% metric. Yeah.
Okay.
Still a lot of people are in that unknown category.
A lot. Yeah. You see a huge number in the unknown. Here's the thing. When you do it on Google, most people, surprisingly, are logged in on YouTube whenever, because they're going to Google, going to YouTube because they have subscriptions and they want to watch those subscriptions. So they have to be logged in to do those. In order to like something, interact, leave comments, you have to be logged in to do that. And
that's to see your own subscriptions, which is huge. That's everything.
So because of that, we now have demographic information on the majority of clicks and impressions and views and all this kind of stuff, which is huge. So now instead of having a kind of, by choosing an age bracket of 18 to 30, you really limit your audience because you're only going to get about 50% of your audience, 40% of your audience, because the rest is all unknown. That's not the case. You're going to get maybe 70, 80%, depending on which age group you're going for, but maybe higher for younger ages. But you're going to get tons of data because most people are logged in, and that's huge. So
that is huge. I had never thought about that, and thank you for bringing that to our attention. That is that's a big deal. That's a big deal.
Yeah. So super cool. I just, really wanted to share the fact, I get excited because it's, I don't think people give stuff like this enough credit. YouTube is not advertising for YouTube creators because they want more subscribers to their channel. I mean, that's not what this is about. This is about the average Joe company trying to get the message out to their potential audience.
Now, Chris, we're going to wrap up here with just some tips on YouTube ads, and then also we can talk about what success looks like. And I have a little comment about a survey YouTube offers some advertisers. But Chris, before that, we'll get into our last our last audience that you can target, and that is placements. That's actually targeting an individual channel and an individual video. So let me give you an example, Chris. This is huge. There is, if you remember back in the day, the And One show, street basketball on ESPN, blew up. It was huge. One of those guys, Chris, please, bro.
Sports. Sure.
I'm not going to talk about big people sitting on balloons right now, so just relax. I'm talking about sports.
I appreciate we're going straight to sports. Go ahead.
Come on, Chris. Give me a little credit. I'm talking about sports. So one of those stars, Chris, from that show, his name is the Professor. It's this little white guy who has great handle with the basketball and all that kind of stuff. Well, he was huge. He transitioned once that show ended on TV to a YouTube channel. He runs a YouTube channel with over 1 million subscribers. So if I am a shoe company and I'm coming out with a new basketball shoe, like I'm Nike or And One or something, or I made some kind of product to help people jump higher to dunk, that's going to be people watching videos about basketball is who I want to get in front of. Who else than the hardest of the hardcore basketball people who are watching the Professor's channel? So you can target individual channels and individual videos. And that, to me, that is huge because you can find another business or another kind of product that you like and you want to get in front of. You have the same exact audience. You know that, okay, if someone's looking at that, they're going to be interested in my business. And then you can target their videos. So that's awesome. Chris, question for you as we wrap up the different kinds of audiences. Can you just target one of these audiences, like demographics or a placement or people who are interested in something? Or can you mix and match different audiences and target, say, women who are between 18 and 24 who are interested in fashion or something like that? Can you mix these audience types?
Yeah. Jason, good question. And the answer is yes and yes. You can
my mind blew up. Whoa.
The level of complexity is based on your own creativity, right? Now, of course, you're going to limit your audience by subcategorizing each of these things, women who are this age, who are interested in this, who are parents, stuff like that. I mean, you're going to get smaller and smaller subgroups, but yes, you can. And this is basically YouTube's version of exact targeting keywords, right? Yep. I mean, on search, you can have an exact phrase, but on YouTube, you subcategorize and you have multiple targeting criteria in place, and you end up getting very specific audiences. And that's where you're going to get into what we talked about earlier, higher cost per views, because you're being so picky.
Because it's worth it. So Chris, I guess we started the show off talking about the question was, should I be on YouTube? And I think the question needs to be changed for any kind of business owners out there. Why aren't you on YouTube? With this much kind of targeting and the power of a video ad, it's kind of a no-brainer here. So definitely got to be on YouTube. Now, Chris, let's wrap up here by talking about some tips for YouTube ads, and then how you and I define success of a campaign. But Chris, before that, I just want to let people know, sometimes instead of an ad, you'll see a survey, like which car would you consider buying in the next 12 months? Subaru, Honda, Toyota, Cadillac, or something like that. And then you submit your little survey. That is Google running surveys for advertisers to let them know if their brand awareness was raised. When they ran a YouTube campaign, I ran a campaign. They were spending between $8,000 to $10,000 a month on YouTube, Chris, for a jewelry store. And my team at Google, who helps me out sometimes, they told me, if you're spending over $8,000 a month, this was a few months ago, so things might change, but if you're spending over $8,000 a month, they do have a program where you can target that audience who's seen the ads, and then target a experiment audience who has not seen your video ads, and target those two groups with surveys, and prove to the company, prove to the advertiser that your brand awareness has been raised with your YouTube campaign. So I wanted to throw that out there. Unlike, I would say, TV, this is very measurable in terms of surveys and getting actual real data.
Yeah, good point. Good point. Nothing like it. Nothing like it to be able to directly measure your audience impact. So good stuff. I hope everybody, gets it. I think, Jason, we can probably come back to this. There's probably more we can talk about. And if you guys out there want to hear more, send your questions in. I think we'd love to talk more about it. And if there is an interest, because we'll revisit it.
Yeah, we got to tell people, tips we could come up with, Chris, and then also how to measure success. So I think we'll save that for a future video or podcast, because we're hitting here the time limit, Chris. But I think this was a good introduction to YouTube, a very deep introduction, and you can just tell in our voices, Chris, it's exciting, the possibilities with YouTube here.
Yeah, absolutely.
So with that said, everybody, thank you for listening to episode number 53 of the Paid Search Podcast. We have redone the homepage on our website, Chris. You can now go there and listen to all the old podcasts beyond the last 30. And we love that you guys listen. We love that we're growing this group of people who are interested in AdWords. We come out with shows every single Monday. You can find the archive at paidsearchpodcast.com. Ask us questions on the website. And really, guys, we appreciate you sharing the show and leaving us reviews. That is huge. So with that said, Chris, why don't you take us out? Just kidding. I just did. So we appreciate you guys listening. We are going to float back into the interwebs now and go away for a week. But we will be back next Monday with episode number 54 of the Paid Search Podcast. Chris's age, 54.
Thanks, guys.